Hello students, the purpose of this lesson is to teach you about copyright law. So what is copyright law? Copyright laws protect your rights when you create an original work. So what do we mean by an original work? It's something you create by yourself. You're not copying someone else's work. It is creative in some way and it must be fixed in a tangible form of expression, meaning the work is written, recorded, or captured in some medium that can be perceived, reproduced, or communicated for more than a short time. So basically what that means is that it can't just be something in your head. You have to put it into the world somehow by writing it down or recording it. So why is this important to you? So first of all, we are all copyright creators. Anytime you create something and record it, put it on paper, make a product, you become the owner of a copyright. As creators, we should want our ideas and creations to be protected. We are all copyright users. Anytime you read a book, watch a movie, sing a popular song, research a subject for a project, you're using copyrights. We have a responsibility to follow copyrights, and it's the law. So if you don't, there could be consequences. And then lastly, we all need access to information. The actual initial intent of the copyright laws was to promote learning and the dissemination of knowledge. So basically, trying to get people to put knowledge out in the world so it could be used. And copyrights are going to make people more likely to put their ideas out in the world because they're not afraid that they're going to be stolen from them. So, what rights are protected under copyright law? So, reproduction. You can't make copies of someone else's work. I can't make copies of a DVD that I buy in a store and then give out copies or sell copies to my friends. That would be breaking the reproduction part of the copyright law. Distribution. You can't give out or sell copies of someone else's work. For both reproduction and distribution, the idea here is that if you're giving these things out or you're selling them, then whoever the creator of the resource is not going to be able to make any money off it, because why would they go buy it from them if you're already giving it away or selling it yourself? Then another right is the right of derivative works. So you can't create a work based on an existing copyrighted work. This is somebody else's creative vision. So even if you take it and you change it up a little bit, they may feel like the way that you have changed up their work reflects poorly on the original work. And since you're using ideas, they want to have credit for it as well, because it's still their idea, even if you've changed it a little bit. And then the next part of this is public performance. I can't have a public performance of somebody else's work. I can't get some friends together and put on a show of Hamilton for people to come watch in the park. Okay. And then the last part of this is the last right is public display. I can't publicly show a copy of, say, a movie or a concert without permission. With public performance and public display, again, whoever the creator of the work is, they may not like how you're presenting the work. I've seen politicians get in trouble for this when they have chosen a song to play at a rally or something without the permission of the artist, and the artist comes out and tells them to stop because they don't want to be seen as being connected to that politician. And just generally, they may not feel like the work is being presented in the right way because you don't have the actors that they wanted, or it may not be being done in a venue that they envisioned their creative work are being presented in. And then again, there's the monetary part of this. They don't want you displaying something or performing it, and then people come to your performance and pay you money to see it when they could be going to a place to see the work somewhere where the creator is going to be getting paid for that. So that takes us to this idea of if we know that we can use other people's works. People do it all the time. When we do research, we use other people's work. So there must be a way to use it. Okay, so what can you use, and how do you do that? So if if the initial purpose of the copyright laws, oops, sorry, if the initial purpose of the copyright law was to promote learning and dissemination of knowledge, there's got to be a way to get the knowledge out there. Um, so what can you do? You can ask permission to use copyrighted works. Um, Usually, if you're going to give permission to use copyrighted work, you're not going to go straight to the creator. Usually, you'll talk to the publisher or the distributor. They're usually in charge of giving out the licenses to be able to use a copyrighted work. And there's some things you should keep in mind if you are asking for permission. Be specific about how much, what part, and for what purpose you want to use the resource. There probably will be a fee. If you ultimately decide not to use that resource, make sure you tell the publisher or the distributor so they know that, and always keep copies of any contacts or messages related to asking for permission. That way, if later on the person comes back and say they don't like how you used the resource, or you ended up not using the resource and the person comes back and tries to charge you for it, you're going to have backup to show what the actual agreement was, and that that you've been communicating with that publisher or distributor. So that's one way that you can use copyrighted works is by asking and then getting permission. There are also works that are open for people to use that aren't copyrighted. So these works are called public domain works. So some resources are available for anyone to use and thus don't have a copyright. These resources are considered part of the public domain. Most works that are part of the public domain are works that used to be copyrighted, but their copyrights have run out. Okay, so copyrights do have an end date. When the copyright law was initially created, copyrights were only protected for 28 years from the point the copyright was created, though you could apply to get it renewed for a longer period of time. But as time went on, the law's been changed multiple times. It's been lengthened to longer and longer periods. Today, copyrights last from 70 to 100 years after the death of the creator, depending on the circumstances. Many resources produced by the federal government are also part of the public domain. Our democratic republic is based on the idea that the government belongs to the people. So most documents anyway, created by the government belong to us and should be available to us. For students, the public domain resources can be really helpful because you can use them without permission. So there's lots of websites like Pixabay and Pexels where you can find public domain resources, especially images. We shouldn't just be going out on the internet and picking any image that we find out there. Those images belong to somebody. So public domain images are images that generally you're able to use. Sometimes you might be asked to provide a citation for those things, even in the public domain, but they're going to be open for you to use. And then there's the idea of fair use policy. So for educational purposes, which your schoolwork falls under, you can usually use parts of copyrighted materials as part of this fair use policy. So fair use provides that some copyrighted materials may be used under certain circumstances. So these are the circumstances, the criteria. So purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is for nonprofit educational purposes rather than of a commercial nature. So this is why in most cases you can quote or paraphrase other people's works when you're writing research papers, because you're not profiting from it, and it's fulfilling that purpose, that initial purpose of the copyright law to disseminate information. The next criteria for this is the nature of the copyrighted work. Works that are made for entertainment purposes are probably going to be less likely to fall under the fair use policy. You shouldn't really be profiting or limiting the profits of the creator by your use. Okay, this is one of the reasons why it's kind of looked down upon for teachers to show just fun movies at school, because you're showing a movie and it's not for an educational purpose, so you're breaking a copyright. Next criteria: amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Okay, so this is just like how much of the work are you using. So using an entire work probably would not fit under fair use, but if you're only using a small part or a quotation, it's probably for educational purposes, probably going to be okay. Effect of the use on the potential marker or value of the copyrighted work. An example of this would be making copies of your textbook pages rather than buying the textbooks, right? As schools, we buy textbooks, um, and that means that the creators are making money off of it. We can't just go make copies of one textbook and give it out to all the students. That would be wrong. All right, so the next thing in our presentation here is the difference between copyright infringement and plagiarism. Okay, so this kind of gets into how citations and reference lists are connected to copyright law. So if you use copyrighted materials without permission and under circumstances that do not meet the criteria for fair use, that is called copyright infringement, and that is against the law. Even if you use copyrighted materials under the fair use policy, you still need to give the creator credit for the work by citing the source. Copying or paraphrasing someone else's work is called plagiarism. Plagiarism is wrong, but it does not necessarily have anything to do with copyright infringement. Copyright infringement and plagiarism are two different things. It is possible to plagiarize a work without breaking a copyright. An example of this would be if you copied a work that is part of the public domain, there's no copyright to break, but you still should use a citation to give the creator credit. On the other hand, if you use something that is copyrighted without permission and it does not meet the fair use policy criteria, it is copyright infringement even if you use a citation. So they are different things. The good news for us is that most of what we do in school is going to fit under fair use, but what we need to do as good of a job as possible making sure we credit people for their work with our citations and reference lists. So that's kind of the overview of copyright law. So we're going to be doing some activities where we can apply this knowledge and review some of these terms as well. And here are the references. So make sure that I'm following through with copyright law as well. Thank you.